Coming up, enjoying the journey.
Our lives are made up of moments, and those moments create memories.
Joni Parsley encourages us to embrace every season as we discuss her book, Tapestry of Faith.
When you realize what season you're in, then you find your purpose in that season. I found that embracing those seasons is what we really need to do in order to find our fulfillment.
The conversation starts now.
Real friends, loving, laughing, and learning together. Sharing stories, one life at a time. So grab a seat. Welcome to Joni Table Talk.
Well, on this journey called life, God weaves our tapestry of faith using every situation and circumstance. Every thread is important because every thread is something learned or an area where God challenges us to grow. And no one knows this better than our special guest, and we'll hear more about that in just a moment. But first, joining me around the table is my dear friend, Kendra Kelly-Dean. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Doing good. I'm excited about this program.
The Tapestry of Faith.
Oh, the tapestry of life and faith. Thank God
and
for
you
faith
have a beautiful tapestry. I mean, you think about you're a PK and wonderful tapestry of ministry that's now being passed on to you, and you'll pass on to your kids.
Yeah. It's always exciting, but we can always learn and we can always grow, and so
that's true. Anna Kendall, how are you?
Oh, I'm just wonderful.
How is your tapestry going?
Oh, my tapestry is just great. It has a lot of golden threads through it. Lots of purple.
You definitely have a blingy tapestry. I'm sure of that.
A few broken threads, too, but, you know.
We all have that as well. Cindy Murdoch, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
It's good to have you here. And I'm so excited to have Joni Parsley. I mean, another Joni, folks, on the table today. Welcome to the table.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. And I've just loved you for many, many years. And you and Rod are just so precious to the body of Christ.
Oh, thank you.
We were kind of co-workers in a way that we have the same goal, don't we? And that's giving people hope.
That's right. Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. Well, Joni Parsley has spent the last 27 years working in ministry alongside her husband, Rod Parsley. Together, they pastor World Harvest Church in Columbus, Ohio. You know, that little struggling church up there. And along the way, they've learned to balance parenthood and marriage with their ministry work. Now, in her new book, Tapestry of Faith, Joni shares the threads of faith she's gained on her journey, and she's here to share more about it. And I have to tell you, every time I read a teleprompter and I'm saying the name Joni, I get a little confused. So yes, and we both spell it the same way.
I know, that's so unusual.
It is unusual because it's not a name that you hear a lot.
No.
How did your mother pick that name?
I really don't know.
You don't know?
She just said she had like 3 or 4 names, and she picked that one.
And she picked that one. My mother had a girl in high school that she admired, and her name was Joni, and that's how I got my name.
Sweet.
So, but let's talk a little bit about your book. Are you excited about it? A Tapestry of Faith.
I'm glad it's finally out.
Like you feel like you birthed something, right?
Yes, it did. It did feel like that. When it finally got out of my hands into the mail, I felt like...
Yeah. But you've always loved to write, though.
Yes, I've always loved writing since I was young. I'm not young anymore, I can say that, since I was young.
No, we're still young, Joni. We're still young.
Young at heart, I guess.
Well, one of the things that you talk about in the book, I think that we all can relate to here at the table, my years as a mom, and I know, Kendra, you are just beginning that journey. The rest of us, we have grown children.
Right.
And so... talk a little bit about that. That was a very, very important season and continues to be for you.
Yes. Well, I think it's important for moms, and well, everybody and every Christian to find to recognize that our life is made up of seasons. And when you realize what season you're in, then you find your purpose in that season, and you're not looking to a season that was yesterday, that in looking for the glory days and wishing for that, or looking ahead to find fulfillment in the future. You find your fulfillment, and that's what Ecclesiastes actually says. There's a season and a purpose with that season. So I found that embracing those seasons is what we really need to do in order to find our fulfillment. And then you just settle into that. You don't, it just doesn't have the anxiety, and you're just settled in, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so for me, it was just something that when I had kids, they were going to be priority. I knew, especially, that I wasn't just raising kids, I was raising eternal beings. And that my responsibility was that they were going to spend eternity somewhere. And my responsibility was to point them to the eternity, of course, in heaven. And so that was the responsibility I took most seriously, beyond ministry, beyond anything else, that atmosphere that I created and a godly life and a godly lifestyle, and to be that kind of role model for them, that nothing was more important than that God in my life was going to be a model for them. Not just a church, but God himself.
And you, of course, you and Rod were full-time in ministry as you're having children. So, I mean, it's not like the ministry shut down. But for that season, you had to prioritize your kids. I think that's important for all of us, really, to hear in ministry, because there are so many PKs and ministry kids that I've talked to over the years who have wounds and from the ministry coming before them, and we know that's not the way God intended.
No, and I think, I mean, that was something that I just always said, I will not sacrifice my children on the altar of ministry success, because it was just as we heard this morning, I was more interested in significance than success. And it was sort of that, you know, we just did divide and conquer. We decided that if Rod had to travel, I wasn't going to. And every now and then I did, but if I did, they came with us. So, but it was fine with me if I missed something. I missed out on a lot of exciting trips. I missed out on some exciting events, but coming on the other side of it now, I don't have the regrets of saying, oh, I wish I'd been there. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have gone, you know. So I don't have those regrets.
That's
and I
awesome.
was fulfilled. Even though there were, you know, times I might have been a little disappointed for missing something, I was still so fulfilled because there was nothing more important and nothing more joyful to me than having time with my kids. So
I think we all have some stories about as a mom, why it's important to all of us. I'll let you start real quick, Cindy.
Well, you know, I've shared this story before, that when we think about our children as priority, I do remember all the company would come over after the revival service or TV.
You always
at the
had
house.
people at your house.
So I was cooking, and I remember having the baby on my hip, putting the cake in, trying to make sure I didn't burn the baby, getting the cake in the oven, setting the timer, running out in the yard, playing ball with John David for just a little bit. I still got the baby on the hip. You know, and while I'm doing the cake and got the baby on the hip, my soundtracks are going in the in the sound cassette thing, you know.
Right. We know y'all don't know what a cassette player, but just bear with us. Bear with us. You're singing.
I'm singing my song, you know, to get ready. So it just seemed like a whirlwind of life, you know, that I was trying to balance. But one thing, as I've shared before, at night, when it was time to put those boys to bed, you know, I didn't care who all was at the house, what was going on. It was I stopped and took them to bed, read to them, prayed with them, and spent that time. But I always told my company goodbye before I took them in the event they left while I was back there with the boys. So I am so grateful that I did stop.
They still remember that, don't they?
They do.
Right.
They do remember. So is this what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's what's important, because our lives are made up of moments, and those moments create memories. And so I wanted the message sent to my kids that they were that important in those moments and memories that they would carry with them their whole lives. I wanted them to be good.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the things your kids would remember about that particular time in your life when they were younger? Just you being there a lot of times when Dad would be gone.
Well, yes, and I mean, 'cause I refused that they would be. We obviously have babysitters here and there, but like any family, but but we didn't have nanny or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think not just only that I was there, but we decided that our church was going to be, when they were there, that church was like a second home. So that atmosphere, whether we were back in the office or they were in the sanctuary, and you know, they went to school there too, and so their lives were really there. So it was just a second home. So we never put, even when we were there in the office, they could run in and out, and it was just like a second home.
Yeah, they felt very comfortable.
Right.
You
didn't
wanted
they?
them to feel comfortable.
Right, and a part of everything, and that nothing, I mean, they would walk in, we were teaching them manners and to be appropriate, but if they needed something and they walked in and mom and dad were in a meeting, or mostly dad, they, would crawl up on his lap or and be sitting there or over there fixing food or something, and everybody just knew that our kids were going to be around. So.
Right, and so you didn't want them resentful of the ministry. I
Feeling
think that's
left out.
important.
Yeah.
What was your story, Kendra?
Oh, my goodness. Well, my parents raised me just as you were describing. So church was our second home. And my husband's a pastor's kid, too, and we want that for our daughter, Jaden. She's 2.5. And so this season I'm currently in, it has been so busy at our church. We're getting ready for this conference coming up, and so I work during the day, and then poor Jaden has been with us at church every night, and I'm this one time I'm working with one of our student leaders, and we're trying to write this script, and Jaden came up to me, and it was so stressful. I'm tired, and she was like, "Mama, Mama, Mama." And in my flesh, my weakness, I was like, "Jaden, stop," And this sweet little, she was like, it was like I broke her, and it was like the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, "Kendra, what do you want her to remember about this moment right now?
Yes,
do you want her to resent the church? Like, what is this moment?" And I was like, and I told the student, I was like, "Excuse me." And I picked up Jaden and I pulled her over to the side. And one of the things that we've been teaching Jaden is, whenever you get really angry, you need to take a deep breath, count to 4, and use your words. Don't whine, use your words. And so I pulled her over to the side and I said, "Jaden, Mommy made a mistake. Mommy should not have talked to you that way. I am so sorry. Will you please forgive me?"
That's great.
And she, children, she looked at me and she said, "Mommy, take a deep breath," and she went, and count to 4. And it was just this awesome. And then I'm crying. I'm like, "I love you so much." Use your words, Mommy. Okay.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that you talk about in the book is "Hello, my name is," and I don't know why I have an aversion to that little tag thing.
That's true.
It's rebellion or what? I hate putting it on there. When you go to these big gatherings, you don't really want to stick it on.
I'll tell you my name.
So explain that chapter to us, if you would.
Well, I think in life, from the time you're a kid, especially when you go to school, you're labeled. And not only do other people label us, but we tend to label others. And if you're conscious of it, and what I really wrote about was that if we can really become conscious and aware that we're a child of God and we're God's beloved, regardless of what anybody else says about us, whatever they say or whatever label they might attach to us, that we can be conscious of that. But not only are we to be conscious of what labels are attached to us, but for us to be conscious of the ones we will attach.
Yeah.
We can go into a room and sort of survey the room and start labeling people right away. Well, that's that they're in that group or that group, or, it's just, and oftentimes whatever we were labeled in school, we carry with us the rest of our lives, and we just kind of, ascribe to that label, and it just creates all these feelings of inferiority, and I just think that we really do have to fight against it for ourselves and for doing it for others.
Now, with that fiery red hair, I want to know, have you ever been labeled?
Yes, I certainly have. But I'll tell you, the worst label I ever had really was when I labeled myself. And I think it was in my early teen years of insecurity, and I tried to act like I wasn't insecure, when you're going through those times. And I was I can remember trying really hard to be all things to all people.
Right.
And just it was like I was tap dancing as fast as I could.
Right.
Are you happy? Are you pleased? And it was like, as an adult, when I realized I didn't have to please everybody, I only had to please one person. And that was so life-altering.
Everything else will fall into place.
Everything else. Will fall into place or fall away.
Right.
That was what was so important. So sometimes I think we have to look at the labels we give ourselves.
That's good.
You shared with me the story about, and so many pastors' wives watching, or people in ministry will understand this, but where people will try to put labels on those of us that are in ministry. Well, you should probably be doing this, that, and the other. You experienced that.
Oh my, I did. There was a group of people or several, I should say, that they had an idea of who I should be as the pastor's wife, and they told me to my face.
And it wasn't what you were presently.
It wasn't,
or they didn't think you were
right,
presently
they said,
fulfilling.
we think you should do this, and you should be this way, and we would have never picked you. And it just, I crushed. And it came at a time when I was on my face before the Lord and saying, Lord, who do you say that I am?
That's good.
And am I your girl? And when I felt through the word and through time and prayer that I was the apple of his eye, I was his daughter. I was his beloved. He was my Isha. He was my everything.
That's
and
good.
it changed the way I saw myself.
Yeah, I'm sure that there have been times with a church as large as World Harvest Church that people have come up and said, now, Joni, I think you should be doing this.
It must have been that same group of people. They traveled to Columbus. Well, the odd thing was Rob was already pastoring, so the first year we were married, my head was swimming, and it was really one of those defining moments, because I had people telling me I should do this, I should wear this color. Then they'd say, well, no, I think you should wear this color, and I just was so, just so
you
confused.
should be over this part of the ministry. You should get up and speak here.
I wasn't a speaker. I wasn't a singer. I didn't have any really overt talent, so everyone was a little confused, I think, too. And but I just remember a moment, just one of those moments where you remember when God speaks to you. You remember even where you were. And I was in my car. I was going over railroad tracks. I remember exactly God saying, you don't have to follow anyone's footsteps but mine, and you blaze your own trail. And so from that moment on, I was just free to be, I hate to even say that, free to be me, but I was just free to be who God designed me to be. I didn't have to be the quintessential pastor's wife or follow in some other, type and shadow that I'd seen before, that I was just going to blaze the trail he had created.
I love that, and I know that's for someone who's listening or watching today, that's a good word for you. Maybe you just feel like you just want to give up, you just want to throw your hands up and say, I don't want to have anything to do with ministry, et cetera, et cetera. But the Lord's saying that to you today. I have created you to be who you are, and don't try to fulfill the expectations of those around you, but just keep your eyes on him, and he will lead you. He will help you blaze the trail. That's so important. Well, stay right where you are. We'll be back with more from Joni Parsley in just a moment. Well, we're here today with Joni Parsley talking about her new book, Tapestry of Faith. She's been sharing what she's learned along her journey, and next we want to talk about the impact of our words. Now, in one part of the book where you talk about the state of mind, one of your quotes that we loved is, our words can reflect the character of the one whom we claim to serve. His words to us are laced with tenderness and mercy because we are his beloved. Just think of how he feels when we hurt someone he loves and we use our words as the weapon to do so. There are a lot of people in the church that are hurt, and there are a lot of people in ministry that are hurt, and it started right here with the words being spoken.
Right. Well, I just, I think about even, you can look back, and I surveyed a group of people one time and just said, how many of you remember something great a teacher said about you? And, but how many of you can remember something that they said in a negative way? And everybody's hand went up.
Oh, wow.
And you always remember, you can remember some compliments, but you always remember some negative thing. And it's just so much easier to remember something, because the hurt goes down, as Proverbs said, into the innermost part of the soul. And words are weapons. And when we had Austin's diagnosis, one of the things that they told us was it was just the hugest lesson, and we've had so many, but they said, you'll have to choose your words so carefully, because the wrong word or grouping of words could send him into a meltdown. So we were so guarded with our words, and we still are. But it taught me to really think before I talk. Now, I'm not perfect at it, and I certainly do fall down, and my big mouth sometimes gets me in trouble, but it taught me to be guarded. And I think it's so important that if we would do that, if we thought of of what the result would be. Because with him, we knew if we weren't guarded and careful, it could produce a really negative, harmful result. But with each other, one another, especially in marriage relationships or other relationships, even with our kids sometimes, we're not thinking about that result. We're just thinking we're entitled to say whatever we want to say because we're angry or we have these emotions, and we can just, we can just say what we want. You know, and a lot of people do that.
One of the things that separates a healthy marriage from an unhealthy marriage is the ability to edit the words. Healthy people will edit their words before they use them to hurt somebody else.
Right.
That's good. I was thinking as you were talking, you know, Austin and Rod and Joni have shared about their handsome son who is now 22 years old. But he is a high-functioning, is it Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism?
Yes.
But what I was going to say is early on, that early diagnosis, there were some really powerful words that were spoken over him. And so for those of you that are listening, there have been words that have been spoken over you, but they're not necessarily from God. And you had to listen to those words, but you still didn't receive that he would he would never what?
Never talk, never go to school, never understand God. That was one of the hardest things, because they said they would never, they used it religion. He'll never understand religion. It's too abstract, or any kind of abstract idea. And that was so, you know, hurtful and devastating to us, thinking he'll never understand the power of salvation. And yet, of course, he certainly does now. But
he overcame all of those nevers of those
because
words.
even though we heard them, we didn't have to accept them and receive them, and that's the difference.
That's a choice, isn't it?
Right. It's a choice whether we receive what is said to us.
That's so good.
You know, I was sharing earlier that in our home and also at our church, there's like this mantra, this thing that we try to, so we say it over and over again. We're trying to create it as a culture in our church, and that is, your words transform your world. You know, think about what you're speaking and what is the fruit that's going to come out of the words that you speak. What's going to happen to the aftermath? Who are you talking to, and what are they going through, you know, in their life as you're speaking these things? Because they will transform your world. Everything about you. So it is so important to filter and to think, okay, am I speaking this through love? Am I speaking this in a way that will be understood?
And am I speaking life and not death?
Life and not death, exactly.
Because your words hold life or death.
Exactly.
So how do you overcome negative words that have been spoken, and how important is it for us as mothers and wives to speak the right kind of words over our kids and family?
Well, I just think, you know, the more time that you spend with someone, the more time you know them, and as my husband and I said, the more you travel with somebody, especially, and you journey with them, you know them, and the more time you spend with the Lord, the more you become like Him. And I just think that if we can reflect His love and understand His love and how much He loves us, then we can understand how much He loves someone else.
You said something in your book that I read that I thought was so powerful. You said, what would love do? WWLD, you know, so what would love do? And wow, what a difference we all could be if we had that filter whenever we spoke to one another. You know?
And that was a moment that I had been really hurt by something someone had said. And, you know, in your human nature and not your God nature, you want to say something in return, or you're hoping, well, they get theirs. You know, they deserve. And not only did I have to forgive, but I also had to pray, because they pray for them. And that was the part I didn't like. It was like, well, I can forgive them, but I don't want to pray for them. But God, they had set a law in motion by saying that they were going to reap what they had sowed hurt, so they were going to reap that. And so I really had to pray for God's mercy for them. So I learned, you know, I've learned a lot through the years. But it comes from, I think, an honest place in a relationship with God, where you can just be God as Father, and He can know that He knows that I am, you know, that I mess up, but I can tell Him, hey, I just really messed up, so now what?
I need you to fix this.
Now how do I fix my mistake?
You know, we've really barely scratched the surface of the book. Joni's new book, Tapestry of Faith. For those who are listening right now, who would enjoy reading the book?
Well, I mean, it's for anyone, but I really think that women could relate the most. I've heard men, like it, but
Men watch the show.
Yeah.
They tell me that they do.
But there's a lot about motherhood and relationships and family and just really a daily walk with God, just a daily journey. It's not about Rod Parsley's wife. It's about just some Christian.
That's another label right there, right?
Exactly. And it's just a real candid look and transparent look into the life of a Christian, good, bad, ugly, sad, ups and downs, all of it.
Which is so important because I think as women, we have a tendency to have this hyper reality of what other women's lives are like.
Right.
And then we try to filter what we do through their life instead of saying, okay, I made a mistake. I'm fixing this. Or, okay, God, how do you want me to handle this? That's why I like your book.
Yes,
because
your book
it's
is so
very
transparent.
real. Yeah, it's very genuine. And I think women benefit from that.
That's what I want it to be.
I was telling someone about her yesterday, and I said, they said, who's going to be on Table Talk? And I said, and suddenly I had one of those senior moments, and I said, it's the breakthrough wife.
Another label.
And there she is. She's the breakthrough wife.
Yes, and that she is the breakthrough wife. I think what we're saying that this is a journey of faith.
Yes.
And there are good days and there are bad days. There's things that we know that God is faithful, and that's what this book will tell you. And so I know that you'd love it. Would be a great Mother's Day present, birthday present.
Absolutely.
I think your mom would be so blessed, your daughter, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm excited.
It will encourage
about
your faith.
It really will.
Yes.
Great.
Well, we're
Thank
out of time.
you.
Can you believe it, ladies? It went so fast. But I want to thank Joni Parsley, for joining us at the table. Remember to pick up her book, Tapestry of Faith, available now. And for more from Joni, you can visit her online at joniparsley.com. And of course, if there's a need in your life, we have wonderful prayer partners that are standing by. There's a number on the screen. You don't have to give us your name, address, or any of that information, but we're here to encourage you today if you need some encouragement. Also, be sure to join the conversation online by leaving us a comment on Facebook or Twitter. Thank you, Joni Parsley, for being here today.
having me.
And you will have to
Thank
come back. You did a marvelous job.
Thank you so
We'll see you
much.
next time. Bye-bye for
Loved it.
today.
This has been a Daystar television production.